Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome on behalf of Deloitte, EHP and FT to this 9th distribution conference. We brand it still as a distribution conference, although it goes far wider than distribution these days. It is exactly 370 days that I was standing in front of you in a jam-packed conference center at the Kiesch, and it was as well the outbreak of Corona. Nobody knew at that time what it was. I traveled that very same weekend to London, and when I came back, it was official, the scale and how important this pandemic became. They banned traveling across the world pretty soon after that. I believe it was in mid-February last year. A lot has happened over these last 370 days, sorry. Notably that it is for the first time during that year that I'm wearing a suit. So many thanks to all of you for giving me the occasion to break free and wear a suit on this particular occasion. Over those 370 days, we pondered a lot as to whether we will continue with this event or not. And if it wasn't for the perseverance of the Financial Times, who told us that going virtual for conferences is the future, we would probably not be standing here today. Yes, we are missing you here, and I am facing currently an empty auditorium. But the advantages, on the other hand, of a virtual event are undoubtedly important. We can notably reach out throughout the entire world, actually from China over to the West Coast to the US. We have a bigger pool of speakers that we can rely on, and literally we can go as well through the different time zones in order to cover different events. So I hope that you will enjoy this experience as much as we do. It is unknown territory for us, and we're experiencing as well a new event with you. So what's new? I mean, I'm not going to embark on COVID. I'm not going to embark on Brexit or the US elections. There's ample occasions today, and there are panels who are covering these subjects in depth. I'm not going to embark either on the regulatory agenda. As much as the human side affected us all during this pandemic, the industry once again was extremely resilient. Capital markets performed very well, and the regulatory framework handled and coped very efficiently and effectively with the pandemic. A couple of issues that happened, nevertheless, from a regulatory perspective over this last year. PRIPS kit is imminent, AFM consultation paper, ESMA consultation paper on marketing rules, post-Brexit registration in the UK for distribution of non-UK domiciled funds in the United Kingdom, and last but not least, ESG disclosure rules that Jacques will take you through a little bit more in detail in his presentation. Last but not least, from Deloitte, and for the purpose of this conference, what is important to know what happened within those last 12 months is we issued the Navigating Asia Guide, which provides you with a vademecum on comprehensive distribution rules if you decide to take your products to Asia and Southeast Asia. If that is of any interest, I invite you to go on our site and download those rules. Lastly, numbers are always very important, and I said it is a first experience for us as well. This conference goes virtual. We hope that next year we will be able to host it again with you all being present. Nevertheless, numbers speak for themselves. We have an increase of our attendance of more than 250%. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are more than 2,200 today to enjoy this event together from 79 different countries, 39 speakers, 8 moderators, and very important in these times, out of the 39 speakers, 25 men, 25 are men and 14 women, which is as well an improvement of 36%. Last but not least, a thank you note not only to the co-organizer EHP and FT, but as well to my fellow partners. You've been very good and patient over the last couple of weeks and months. A thank you as well to the ladies from the events marketing and our communication teams. And lastly, to our sponsors, who are Capital Group, Kahn Group, FE Fund Info, Courtesies, Morningstar, and STL. Last but not least, thank you to you as well for being so numerous. As I said already, I hope that next year we'll meet again in person. For now, sit back and enjoy this conference. This event is about you, with you, and above all, for you. And on that note, I hand over to my colleague and friend, Jacques.
Thank you, Lou. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, let me join Lou in welcoming you to this year's virtual edition of the Cross-Border Distribution Conference. It is a pity that we cannot have you here in person and shake hands as we did in the past. But this is counterbalanced by a very complete 12 hours program with numerous topics which allows you to pick those subjects in which you are most interested. Amongst the regulatory hot topics that Lou mentioned a few minutes ago, the now closed consultation on the revision of the AFMD and the related discussions on revisiting delegation rules remains without any doubt an issue of concern for the industry. The delegation of portfolio management to centers of excellences all over the world is an integral part of the functioning of the investment fund industry, and it is therefore there to stay. The maxim, do not try to fix what is not broken, which I mentioned at this conference 3 years ago, remains unchanged. But let me add one more key topic where the deadline is almost now. By the 10th of March, prospectuses and other disclosure documents of thousands of Luxembourg funds need to be updated to meet the disclosure requirements of the European regulation on sustainability-related disclosures in the financial services sector, the so-called SFDR. The challenge is huge for the industry and for the regulator to reflect at so short notice on a regulation that remains incomplete, pending the finalization by the European Commission of the Level 2 clarifications. The Luxembourg regulator, the CSSF, has put in place a fast-track procedure for the approval process of the updated documentation and the related self-certification documents that need to be used to that effect have been updated not later than last Friday. So clearly, the key focus now in February 2021 is get SFDR compliant. Before handing over to Yuri Bender, a last word on the publication yesterday of a series of articles, mainly in the German and the French press, on alleged shortcomings in Luxembourg's arrangements for combating money laundering, terrorist financing, and tax evasion. Even if I think that it completely lacks adequacy and should not distract us from the subjects that are really relevant for the fund industry, I felt that not mentioning it at all today could be interpreted wrongly. What I can say at this stage is that the attacks reflected therein against the Luxembourg investment fund industry demonstrate an obvious ignorance by the authors of the features of this industry. The Luxembourg investment fund industry operates in a highly regulated environment since 1983, with all EU regulations having been implemented and applied in a timely manner, in most cases before all other EU member countries. It is supervised by a regulator that has a solid first-class reputation, not only in Europe, but also worldwide. Clearly, only lack of knowledge and professionalism can be at the origin of these unjustified attacks against the Luxembourg financial sector in general and the fund industry in particular. This being said, let me introduce Yuri Bender, editor-in-chief at the Financial Times, who will, together with his colleagues, lead us through the conference. Those who have attended the conferences the last years will know Yuri and the way he efficiently and controversially moderates panels and conducts interviews. Thank you, Yuri, for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jacques, for those kind words. Hello, good morning, and a very warm virtual welcome from all at the Financial Times to our annual cross-border distribution summit held in conjunction with our perennial friends and partners Deloitte and Elvinger Prussen. Many thanks to our old friends Lou Kiesch from Deloitte and Jacques Elvinger of Elvinger Prussen for their kind introductory remarks and their support of this event for so many years. Our event is sponsored by firms, those two firms from the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, and they will tell you that their business is no longer just about Luxembourg. As most of you know, the Grand Duchy began to make a name for itself more than 30 years ago at the time of the inception of the UCITS directive, allowing cross-border distribution of funds across the European Union. For many in Europe, this was but an obscure piece of paper from the Brussels bureaucrats, but for local strategists like Lou and Jacques, this was a passport both to success for their tiny country and to having funds domiciled here distributed across the expanding European Union. They designed these funds in such a way to incorporate emerging market equities and bonds. These were assets previously reserved for only the most sophisticated institutional investors, now available under Luxembourg labels to all retail investors in Europe's avenues, rues and strasses. Next came futures and options, and eventually hedge funds and private equity, all of which will be discussed today. I was once told by a very well-known Luxembourg politician in the early 1990s that every Luxembourger is a famous Luxembourger, meaning that what is done in the Grand Duchy can often have a much greater resonance, a much greater global resonance. But I would further adapt this saying, stealing a little inspiration from the late John F. Kennedy, that today we are all Luxembourgers. Attacks on the Luxembourg Financial Centre and the Luxembourg fund industry are in fact attacks on the whole global financial industry. If we look at the key issues affecting Luxembourg investment fund and management companies, covering both liquid and alternative products, surveyed recently by a consultancy, they are, firstly, adopting a common definition for environmental, social and governance practices in order to seize the myriad of global ESG and green finance opportunities. Secondly, gaining a better understanding of the risks and challenges around cybersecurity and digitalization highlighted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And thirdly, addressing an imbalance of board compositions in terms of diversity. These umbrella topics, these three key topics of asset diversification, digitalization in the COVID era, and diversity, which affect the Luxembourg industry, are the same ones shaping investment the world over. These three key trends we'll be discussing and in today's agenda, which will be a very interactive one. We would urge you to post any questions for our panelists in your chat box. We will address as many of these questions as possible, and please tweet away using the hashtags, hashtag crossborderLU. That's with a capital C, capital B, and capitals L and U, crossborderLU, or hashtag crossborder 2021. Once more, capital C for cross, capital B for border, and the numbers 2021. It is this bringing together of fund management to a much broader audience, this democratization in which Luxembourg, as a distribution hub, has enjoyed its biggest successes, bringing sophisticated asset management to retail investors, not just on the European continent, but now increasingly in Asia, where the UCITS funds are being distributed to a growing audience. And it is this question of how to distribute across Asia, the world's most attractive financial services market, which we will address in today's first panel discussion. This will commence in several minutes.